flash screen up here for people to watch while Anthony shares out the show, and you can share it out as well if you'd like to bring people in. Would you like me to grab that link for you to drop in to share out, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, sorry, I hadn't. Yeah, if you can send it.
Okay, let me grab that link real quick. I'm going to grab a YouTube link for now. As soon as it loads up here, and we'll get that shared out for folks. Let's see here. Come on, YouTube, load up. There's that. Copy link address. I'm going to paste it over here in the Zoom meeting for you. Does that work for you? There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
That is that. Okay, close the chat back out. I'll go ahead and share it to a couple spots, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. And folks that are watching, if you could do us a huge favor and please share out this link, give us a hand, tell your friends. We're having a good old fashioned conversation tonight. You know, like we used to do back when we were, decent people. Just kidding. All right. There we go. Home live now. Got it. It's usually like this, a little couple minutes right there in the beginning where we're just getting everything, because we don't have like a team that can help us with all this, so we kind of have to do it ourselves. That's how awesome we are. Maybe someday we'll grow up. All right. Are you hot?
I'm fine.
It says it's 66 in here. Why am I burning up? Turn this fan on real quick. Get us a little air in here. Get some airflow. All right. Here we go. And I'm going to begin now. That's what I'm going to do, because that's what I do. So welcome back to another episode of the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. I'm your host, Daniel Wagner.
Anthony Trawick.
And tonight we are chatting with Tommy Karstensen, one of the original creators of Jan6attack.com, a database website that documents, stores, and catalogs the participants in the January 6th rally and subsequent protest. We'll be having that chat tonight on the Unframe of Mind show, so stay tuned for that.
You're listening to the Unframe of Mind show, the place to have the most mind-stretching, unprotected, intellectual intercourse of your life. Your hosts battle the forces of evil by lobbing fiery balls of truth, reason, and evidence over safe room walls.
Alrighty then.
Well, good evening, Daniel.
Yeah, what's going on?
How are you doing?
I know I'm doing well. It's been
So
a hellacious week.
You just recently got back from D.C. Tell me a little bit about that.
I did. I just got back from D.C. We had a previous episode where we were talking about whether or not to release our footage to Amos Pictures about my involvement in January 6th. And because since I was there, I was on the ground. I had exclusive footage from what was going on that day.
Right.
And so we ended up going, me and Chase Matheson ended up getting invited to D.C. To sit down for an interview and have our stories told. Now, whether or not they're actually going to use any of that footage or not, I have no idea.
Yeah, we won't know until the fall when they release it on
right.
HBO.
So it's supposed to be released sometime in October, but you know how release dates go. It usually, ends up changing.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty excited. That was a lot of fun. Got to go back and see DC again. I bought this amazing papaya, a little bag of papaya from a little Mexican lady that was sitting there selling like bags of fruit. And she had all these little seasonings and stuff. And this was like during the 20 minutes of time before we hopped back in the car and took the 10-hour drive back, right? So she's got these little bags. She's got all these little seasonings, little chili seasoning and lemon and salt and what I don't know what all was there. But she's like, you want any of this? And I was like, you know what? I'll tell you what. You make it the way that you like it. And she did. She sat there and mixed it all up. She put in some kind of like green powdery, looked like crushed herbs. It started with an A. I don't know what it was called. I got a picture of it, but and a bunch of different little seasonings and stuff. And she mixed it all up in a bag and handed it to me with a little fork. And I paid her $3 because that's how much she was charging. I was like, that is awesome. And I'll tell you what, that was the best thing I've eaten all month. Oh my God, it was amazing.
So speaking of January 6th, you going back to DC to tell your story about what happened that day.
Right.
Tonight's show is to have a conversation from the other side of what happened, or, you know, kind of their take on the whole situation from January 6th.
Right, right. And before we get into that, I do want to do the quick phobismist, and then we'll bring in our guest for the night.
Yeah,
How
that'll
about
work.
that sound?
Well, you got to bring him in to do the phobismist.
Well, did you want to? Did you want to? Sorry, Tommy. Did you want
No, I'll pass.
Okay, he'll
Okay.
pass on that.
Yeah,
So
that's fine.
We'll explain why.
Phobismist.
All right, and
And yes, that's my deep voice.
yeah, that is your deep voice. So today on the Phobismist, we're going to explain to you why salty nuts
Salty nuts.
are offensive. And it doesn't seem like, you know, if you're just looking at it right offhand, it really doesn't seem like salty nuts are that much of a problem. I mean, everybody loves salty nuts once in a while, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you put them in your mouth, you swish them around, you might gnaw on them a little bit if the nuts are okay with it, and you know, you either spit them or swallow them. So that's what I'm saying, you know. So, what you brought this one up, so I was just
Yeah, I
was
did.
just curious in your heart of hearts, why should people find salty nuts problematic?
I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, you have your unsalted nuts that aren't getting the same kind of love as the salty kind, you know? I mean, a lot of people like that little extra kick in their mouth, and yeah, you know, those non-salty ones are not getting the love and respect that the ones that are salted. It's just, to me, it could be also racist, too, because you have a lot of your darker nuts and, you know, the ones that are, I don't know. I'm struggling over here.
You
with
were
this
really
one.
struggling. I'm gonna let you drown on this one because
I know you are.
I
You're just
had-
like, dude, you're on your own.
I honestly feel like this is probably the least offensive thing we've ever talked about on the
No.
Phobismist.
There's got to be a way this is offensive. I mean, they're all segregated into different.
Well, this particular batch of
different-
them is,
well,
yeah,
yeah.
but you know, it's just how they roll. You know, they taste different if you try to mix them all together. You know, but then again, they do sell mixed nuts, so I think that problem's already been solved. I think honestly, we might actually have our first unoffensive item. So, what do you say we give it to the audience? We'll let them tell us
Yeah, thank
why
you.
salty nuts
struggling.
are offensive. You should have came prepared before you brought that one up.
Well, you
you should have
know,
had some reason why before you brought it up.
you're a lot better at this whole leftist thing than I am.
It's
so.
not a leftist thing. It's just trying to help the people, man.
Oh, I know.
Anyway, back to the show. So, what do you say we bring in our guest tonight,
Yeah.
Mr. Tommy?
Mr. Tommy.
All right. Hey,
Nope.
that's not the right button.
That's not Tommy.
Let's bring Tommy into the show. Hey, Tommy.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, how are you?
There you are. Yeah. So we've been chatting with him. I spoke with Tommy on the phone for about an hour or so. We've been back and forth on the text messages, and just a quick brief background. This gentleman here saw that I tried to reach out to this website, Jan6attack.com.
Yeah.
I tried to reach out via Twitter to say, hey, I'd like to have a conversation. I honestly, I just want to know, you know, what is it about? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose of this? Why are we, you know, I just want to ask questions. I'm infinitely curious about people, and I want to know about them, and I want to know why people feel like these are the important things that they spend their time on. Like, this is a pretty big endeavor, and we've talked about the site in the past. We've had a show on it, so I'm not going to go into all that again.
But basically, they told
but
you no. They weren't.
They kind of told me no, and just out of the blue, I get this message from Tommy here, and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to have that conversation." The other guys are like, "Nah," but I'm like, he wants to have it, so I'm like, "Bet I absolutely yes, please." Come on. I was honestly, I was honored. I was thrilled that you were able to have the kind of personality and wherewithal to want to have a conversation with, you know, what's considered the other side, I guess. Before I take up the whole time here, let me just give you an opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit. Just tell folks a little bit about you, and we'll just roll from there, I guess.
Yeah, well, you said I'm the other side. I'm not sure if I'm the other side because I imagine that all of us are for law and order. So in that sense, in that context, I don't consider myself the other side.
Right.
But
Yeah, well,
Uh,
to be clear, when I say the other side, this is
Politically speaking.
this is kind of the political divide that has been
Right.
kind of handed down from on high to all of us. Like if you lean a certain way, you are that side, and if you lean this, and honestly, between the three of us, I feel like we are three completely different human beings, and that's what makes us beautiful. But
Yeah.
so what I mean, just maybe we can start with just. You want to see about maybe your past
Yeah, what did-
like,
would you-
who are you, like what
So-
what do people want to know about you?
I start out by saying I'm not a U.S. citizen, so I'm a bystander looking at what's happening. I remember, Daniel, you asked me on the phone, why I was getting involved in all of this, and it's because I've seen deterioration of democracy in EU countries such as Hungary and Poland, and you feel frustrated because you can't do anything. And then when you have an event like January 6th, you rush there to help a friend in need because you feel you can make a difference. I've discussed it with various people, and it's also because my country was liberated by the Allied forces, among them the U.S. At the end of the Second World War.
Yeah.
So and it's a NATO ally, and it really boils down to that.
So you
When
watched.
you see a friend doing harm to himself, you want to help.
So okay, I guess in your mind, I kind of get this picture like the U.S. is over here like slitting its own wrists or trying to cry out for attention of sorts, and you wanted to kind of make that bleeding stop, so to speak. Is that a fair?
Yeah. When January 6th happened, that was a very serious event, because one of the bedrocks of democracy is like peaceful transition of power. And then suddenly, you have this terrorist attack, this insurrection, and the whole world is watching, and so I think a lot of people rushed there to help. In the online groups that I participate in, there's a lot of Europeans even in those groups, because maybe they've seen something happening in their own country and they don't want it to happen in the U.S.
So
I think.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it almost seems as if other countries tend to lean on the U.S. as some sort of beacon of democracy, meaning that, we kind of pave the way and we kind of give the model for everybody else to kind of want to model themselves after. So if we're not acting right, other countries kind of step up and say, hey, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to act this way. Is that kind of a fair assessment as far as the way other countries seem to view the U.S. sometimes?
I can't speak for everyone else, but the U.S. is the biggest democracy in the world. Well, India is bigger in terms of population size, but the U.S. is a bigger economy, more powerful military, etc. I would be really worried if U.S. democracy was to falter, if the U.S. was to embrace fascism. So I felt a sense of urgency myself.
Right. I mean, and that totally makes sense from your perspective. And just to give you a little bit of sense of the other side, and this is just from me having spoken with a number of the participants that were there that day, it was just, there was this sense that everybody was super fed up. Like, just, they're sick and tired of being lied to by the government. They're sick and tired of,
being called a racist.
being called names, racist, bigot, which none of which were true. If you even just showed support for Donald Trump, you were suddenly like the worst enemy, and people's families are shutting them out because of it, and it's just like there's all these different things that kept happening, and you also got to consider, the main news source for a lot of these folks is Fox News and OAN and those types of news networks, which do have a certain leaning, just like I'm sure there's a certain number of sites that people from the other side that saw it as an insurrection were getting their news from. It's kind of the same thing on both sides. when we look at it. But there was a general sense of just from everybody I talked to, just this general sense that everything was, they were hopeful, was a word that I would say, but they also kind of knew that their presence there that day wasn't really going to make that big a difference. That we weren't actually going to do anything to make sure that the vote was correct. Like that's based pretty much.
I don't think it was really even more or less about the vote at that point or about the election. I think this was just 4 years that manifested itself into one big event.
Well,
I think that's what a lot of
immediately after the election, because if you remember,
right.
that day,
But I'm just saying, emotionally, I think it was mostly charged over the last 4 years of the berating of Trump supporters and, you know, people being attacked in public for wearing a MAGA hat. And I mean, I don't care if you're left or right. You don't attack somebody just because they wear a MAGA hat.
Yeah.
So when you have conservatives constantly, you know, being attacked for no particular reason at all, you have to know at some point,
other than who
you're
going
to reach. Yeah, you're going to reach this tipping point in which we saw it January 6th. I think it was a multitude of things. I don't think it was. I think the driving force, yes, was the election gone awry. But I think over the last 4 years, it was just everything bottled up, and then boom, January 6th happened. The frustrations let loose. I wouldn't call it a terrorist attack. I wouldn't call it an insurrection or what everybody calls it. I just personally think everybody's emotions just got the best of them. They got fed up with their government, and they said, look, we've had enough. We have had enough. You're not listening to us. You're not listening to the people who have elected you in the office. Now, this doesn't matter if you're left or right.
Yeah. The left's been doing the same thing in terms of the BLM riots.
The government works.
They feel like their government's not listening to them. The police force are out of control, and they're frustrated, and they're angry, and they're, you know, taking it out on, you know, they're burning down buildings, and they're rioting, and they're looting stores. Like, I don't know if that's going to solve anything.
I'm not saying what happened. I'm not saying what. No, I'm not saying what happened January 6th was a good thing, but sometimes accountability must be held. So when your politicians do the things that they do, and they lie and they deceive the public, and, you know, I mean, come on, you have to lie. You're a politician. That is in your blood. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes I think it's necessary for the American people to hold their government officials responsible for what they're doing, especially if we have elected them to do so. And I think we have a responsibility as an American people that elect these people into office to say, hey, we're tired of it. You need to listen to us. You're not listening to us. We're going to do something about it. That's just kind of where I'm at with it. So I didn't mean to kind of derail from this conversation, but I think sometimes it's the perspectives and stories that need to be heard, or think of the other possibilities that could have weighed into this.
Yep. By the way, Tommy, if you feel it need to hop in, just, you
know. You mentioned a lot of things. I had to scribble down.
Yeah.
You questioned whether it was an insurrection. If I'm not mistaken, the definition of an insurrection is, you know, a violent uprising against the authority or government. So
right.
I think I would call it an insurrection. Then you mentioned that people were fed up about the government lying to them.
Right.
But the president for the past 4 years was Trump, right? And in the Senate you had a Republican majority. So who were people fed up with then? Is it something, were they fed up with events prior to the election, or was it just?
This has been manifesting itself over years, not just under one administration. This has been going on for decades. So that's a decade for sure. Yeah. So let me be clear on that. This is not something that has just gone on just with Trump. That's where I think a lot of people they want to condense this down to the last 4 years of the person that was in office and act like, you know, oh my God, a president's lied. Well, no, I mean, really, if you want to take this back, we can go all the way back to the very beginning. It's just I want people to understand it's not just Trump. It's been Obama. It's been Bush. It's been Clinton. It's been Nixon. I mean, you know, the Watergate scandal. I mean, I can keep going. It's just.
Oh, so just to grab a comment here from Patriot Punk Network said the American War of Independence was an insurrection too. I mean, just to call it an insurrection, whether it was or not. We can squabble about whether or not it was, but just to call it an insurrection does not, in and of itself, make it a bad thing necessarily. I would say that there's a reason why we have the rights that we do, and we have the ability to overthrow our own government should the need arise. That shouldn't be looked at as a negative thing. It should be looked at as actually exactly what the Constitution was designed to do,
Right.
if that makes sense. I did. Go ahead. I
So,
know. You. There's we both got a lot.
Yeah,
So.
I have a lot of.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So in terms of whether an insurrection is viewed as a good or a bad thing, that often depends of who comes out victorious. If England had won back in the day, they would have talked about this violent insurrection and how that was a bad thing. Similarly, sabotage against Nazi Germany during the Second World War. They're heroes in Denmark. If Germany had won the war, they would have been, war criminals or whatever, right? So that depends on
there's definitely something to be said about the victors of war get to write the history. There's I agree with you insofar as whoever wins the particular dispute ends up being the good guys in the history book, so to speak.
Yeah. But I have so much written down. You mentioned that people have been dissatisfied for decades.
Right.
But you haven't seen violent insurrections previously. Why this time?
I can speak to that and kind of what this is kind of a good analogy for what I saw happening here, and it goes something like this. You're the kid that's in school that's kind of minding his own business, and this bully keeps picking on you every day, like keeps messing with you, keeps telling all his friends that this dude is violent, man. He's violent. I got to hit him. So he goes and hits you, and I'm just and the bully's like, and the victim here in this case is just like, man, leave me alone. I'm not none of those things. Stop lying about me. Stop hitting me. Stop telling And then one day, you just finally get fed up. You finally get tired of dealing with the bullshit. You finally turn around to that bully and you sock him in the damn jaw. And then all of a sudden what happens is, at least in today's context, is the media looks and says, see, we told you he was violent. We told you. Here's the evidence. We just caught you on film slapping this bully in the mouth. And now and now the media paints it as this little guy that's been picked on all this time is now the bully. And it's just kind of, that's the general sense I kind of got with everybody that was there. Again, just people in general. You can only take getting called names so much, and being shunned by your community and being called,
Well, you also got individuals like Maxine Water that stands with a microphone in front of a group of people, and it's been all over the internet, calling that if you see Republicans or supporters out in public, you corner them, you go after them. You have an elected official telling you to do this, and then I cannot remember his name, the one that was running for, I think, governor down in Texas. He was the one that says, if we go high, you kick them low. Who was that? I'm sure Chase can probably.
Yeah, I don't recall right off the top of my head.
So
terrible
it's
names.
Yeah, I mean, you're calling to physically harm conservatives. This is coming from Democrat elected officials. Then you have the whole situation with Antifa that's been on there's stuff still going on up in Portland that nobody is reporting. This is a huge issue. And, there's just a lot of things that are going on in our country right now that it's not getting the media or the press coverage that it should. And so you see a lot of things that Democrats are doing, and you're just not understanding why they're calling for this violence against. Now,
Eric Holder, they go low, we kick them.
Yes, that's who it was.
Thank you, Chase.
So, to me, it's like I'm trying to think back to any conservative that was telling other conservatives to physically corner or approach people in public and possibly, inflict harm. And I can't think of anybody that's in the Republican Party that's done such a thing. Not to recent that of my knowledge. So when we were having this conversation about what it is that, Democrats are doing, well, that's it. They're inciting violence. Nobody was talking about, all the people that approached, was it the Capitol when they had the Kavanaugh hearing? All the people that were banging on the doors, and
Right.
there was no police
showing up with firearms.
Yeah, there was nobody there to stop anybody from banging on the doors and trying to get into the building back during the Kavanaugh hearing. That this was Democrats doing this. So, there's been a lot of events that have been documented that have happened. It's almost like it's okay for Democrats to do it, but whoa. If you're Republican, you're not allowed to do this. And if you do it, we're going to smear the shit out of you for it. So this is kind of the state that we're currently in right now, is what Democrats do is acceptable. What Republicans do is not acceptable. And again, to kind of reiterate what, Daniel had said, is after so long of being told that you can't do this, but the other party's allowed to, it's like we're kind of fed up with it, So
That kind of help make some sense of it a little bit.
Yeah, I just want to go back a bit because
sure.
you mentioned that people were tired of name calling.
mhm.
I'm not sure that justifies a violent insurrection, right? If I don't know, in my case, I'm a bit more thick-skinned, and when I'm dissatisfied with the government, I go and vote at the election. I vote them out.
Oh, and that's just
And
it. Think about this for a second, and that's a great point. That's exactly what everybody was trying to do. And what was everybody there to try to protest that day? Do you even remember why they were there to begin with?
Well,
Do you remember what was happening?
You had Ali Alexander and Roger Stone, making a Stop the Steal trend, for example.
Right. You had the politicians were up there supposed to be deciding or whether or not they were going to challenge the vote and that kind of thing. And you've got all these people thinking, I mean, whether it's true or not, convinced that the election is being stolen, that there's all these irregularities they're seeing, and they just want answers. They want to know that
Transparency is what
they want the transparency. They want to know that what is going on is legit, like everything's cool. But they're being met constantly with more and more resistance and being told, oh, well, you're just basically an idiot for questioning the vote. You don't have any place to be questioning the vote. Like you're getting called names for, or whatever the case is. But it's like what you're saying is, yes, when things go a certain way and you go handle it at the ballot box, that's traditionally the way we handle things around here. And that's kind of what the whole goal was. But if you feel like that your vote isn't actually mattering anymore, like your election, whether you vote or not, is not legit, what recourse do you then have at that point?
Right. I don't think I'll be able to convince you.
Oh no! The goal here
It's
is
not
that,
about convincing.
yeah, the goal isn't to convince. It's more to understand each other, and that's what I'm trying to do. Is just help you understand why somebody might feel the way they felt in that moment, and why they might be so frustrated.
Right.
And in their minds, at least most people that were there, in their minds, voting wasn't even an avenue for them anymore, right? So if voting's not an avenue, that's what the kind of feeling was, well, what do we do now? Like, how do
You're
we
left with no option.
like when you, I mean, it's just kind of the general sense that, go ahead.
But I would say, like, you have a framework for how you deal with these issues, right? You go to the courts if you have any evidence of voter fraud. And, these were judges that were appointed by Trump that dismissed the cases. Now you even have some lawyers that risk being disbarred because they brought these ridiculous claims to the courts, right? But I'm not going to convince you, so maybe
Right. So
it
I mean,
would be more interesting for me to. Sorry.
oh, I'll just say, so the question might be then, if I mean, obviously, I think the question would be something more like, well, okay, if I already feel like voting's not an option, and I feel like my government and the media apparatus are constantly trying to knock me down for even questioning it, the courts aren't taking it to even look at it. No court has ever seen the evidence.
No, that's not true. I believe there's been 60 court cases.
60 court cases that were as far as I know, there was about a lot of court cases that were brought forth, but none were
Right.
actually taken to court. Everything was like shut down, tied up. Whatever reason there was always a reason why they couldn't look at it or wouldn't want to look at it. I have yet to hear of a actual court case where the evidence was actually seen, actually litigated. Is that the word? On. I'm not familiar with all the legal terms and whatnot, but again, you got to consider, from the perspective of the people who feel like this is all going on, and the media is telling them this, and they honestly feel like that. You can understand at least why they might be frustrated, and why they might be feeling helpless and hopeless in this time, right? That's really the key thing I'm trying to kind of get through here is, I have no idea if it was legit or not. I don't know. That's just it. I don't know, but I would want to know. I would want like somebody show me, hey, okay, fine, I was wrong. You showed me the evidence.
But you do have that legal framework. You do have the courts. If there's no evidence that is presented, you dismiss the case.
Yeah.
If you don't trust the courts, you can't really have law and order. It just becomes anarchy. If someone feels
I wouldn't go so far as to call it anarchy.
Annoyed about the result of the election, you can't just go and join a terrorist attack.
I might call it chaos, but I wouldn't call it anarchy.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I'm an anarchist, by the way. So I don't think I've told you that yet.
So kind of shifting gears a little bit. So one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on the show tonight is it a website that you developed?
Oh yeah.
So
we kind of got off track.
Yeah,
here.
we did get off track. Listen, so far,
I just to finish up the latter part. I'm really curious to know why you didn't think it was fraud in, for example, 2016 or previous elections.
I think that
also
there's.
If you,
I will answer you. I will answer you that with my article, unframeofmind.com/voter. I wrote that way.
And I would really like to know what would convince you that it's not fraud. If it's been settled in court, and yet, you think there's fraud. So I'm curious to know.
I personally
what would
think
convince you that there was no fraud.
Because I think that the system itself is rigged. Not even so much as the presidential election. I'm talking from mayor races to governors to senators. I think that there is some kind of manipulation to the system to where they do rig these. To how far they go with it, I don't know. I can't prove that. But to say that the system itself is flawless, it's perfect. Nobody has ever miscounted. Nobody has ever, not gotten a single vote right. That to me is just asinine. I cannot think that nobody has ever thought to rig an election over the last 100 years that we've been electing officials in office. I have a hard time believing that.
And my answer to that also, that article I was telling you about is I wrote that way before, I think even before the 2016 election. And it was just a compilation of all the ways that has already been proven that the vote has been rigged and cheating's been done, and how to change elections through different various means.
And I'm not just talking about in the U.S. This goes worldwide with other countries, with other, governing bodies. This is just, to me, in my opinion, it's just not in the United States. This is everywhere. I believe that politicians, most anyways, will do whatever means necessary to get the vote that they want. And if they have to rig it in such a way, I believe that they have the means and the resources to do it. And again, I'm not talking just U.S. I'm talking worldwide. So, to say that our system is perfect, I will never, ever agree to that. To what extent, I don't know. I don't know how far the rigging of the election can go. Is it a huge amount? Maybe. Is it small to where it doesn't really make that significant impact?
Is it 1%?
We don't know.
Is it 45%?
Right.
I think that's where the question actually starts to show up between the two sides.
Go
ahead.
I looked up the numbers. So you know, in 2000, Bush won by 537 votes in Florida, you know, and
The whole
the
Chad
vote,
thing and with Gore.
yeah, it kept changing, right? You didn't get a few hundred votes wrong, obviously,
Right.
but the difference in Georgia was 11,000 votes, and in Arizona it was 10,000 votes, approximately, right? You don't get that many votes wrong, you know, and even if you flip those two states, Biden would still have won. So, but I think it really, I have to go back to my question, you know, what will convince you that it hadn't been stolen, the election? That's what makes me
What did it for me?
wonder that.
What did it for me was the Bush and Gore election, the whole situation down in Florida with the hanging Chads. That to me, that was so long ago. God, that's been a long time ago. And I did not like Bush. I was not a fan of his at all. I wasn't a fan of his daddy either. But yeah, that for me, just seeing how much of a shit show that was, that convinced me back then that the system was rigged. That I don't know why it convinced me, but it did. And we're talking years before, you know, Obama and, you know, Trump was ever elected into office. And to be honest with you, quite frankly, this doesn't have anything to do with Trump. It doesn't have anything to do with Obama. It doesn't have any. It's the system itself that I have the issue with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you
Let me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
but nobody has previously participated in a violent insurrection because they thought there was voter fraud. Why this time? Why not in 2016?
Well, I mean,
Because I think.
to be fair, I mean, people are currently participating in violent insurrections because they think that black men are being shot down by the police en masse. When turns out the number's only like 11 in 2020 or something like that. It was something ridiculously low.
Yeah,
Statistically insignificant, and people are burning down cities over it. So, I mean, people will react emotionally over whatever the news is telling them to react emotionally over. Unfortunately,
Have you been seeing what's going on up in Portland, in Washington State?
A bit of it, yeah. I'm not an expert on the subject, but
Well, you don't have to be an expert. Just do, like, if you can, do more research on what's going on up there. I mean, that's full blown what I would consider to be terrorist. You know, the whole situation with Antifa. They're still literally burning police stations, neighborhoods. It's a war zone that is getting no press coverage, none whatsoever. You know, and
I agree.
So when you were asking us, like, what drove conservatives to do what they did at the Capitol, my question back to you is, why for the last 3 years has Portland, Oregon been in a state of chaos? And why has no elected official done anything about it since, since it's been going on? So as much as I want to understand what you're saying about January 6th, we've got a problem over here in Portland that's been going on for 3 years that hasn't even been addressed by government and elected officials, and that place is burning. And it's like that's what matters to me. January 6th was a one-off situation that everybody wants to focus in on, which I understand. It was a bad situation. It got a lot of press. But hey, over here, Portland, pay attention to Portland. 3 years.
Yeah, we're definitely not trying to, to support. Again, to be clear, I guess I'll speak for myself, but I'm not supporting what happened in January 6th insofar as the people who were breaking into the building, breaking windows and whatnot. I'm not supporting that. But what I'm trying to do is just give a little bit of sense into the fact that, A, it was only a few people doing it, and the fact that the vast majority of people there were hugely frustrated and fed up, and just kind of some of the reasons why they might feel that way. But to get a sense of your side, and I don't mean to cut you off, or I know you want to respond. I want to get back on track a little bit, but I want to get a sense of your side too, because we've spent kind of the whole time kind of explaining why this side was very frustrated, but you felt the need to create an entire website that was designed to basically document, categorize the participants that were there that day, and basically have like photos. I don't remember if it was your site or if it was the other one I looked at that had like hashtags all set up, and it was very well organized. I'll tell you, I gotta I got to give respect to the level of organization that was there. But I mean, in that moment, like, what was it for you that made you decide that this was the way that you were going to, like, what made you decide to do that, to create that website? That's I guess that's what I would like to know.
I felt there were a few unanswered questions, but okay, let's let's continue.
At the risk, I understand. Just at the risk of like having the show go on for 3 hours, I just want to kind of I want to bring it back,
So-
and we can
always have you back on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. This is
Yeah,
I've had a good time so far. I'm enjoying the conversation. I don't feel like,
It's hard to unbox everything we're discussing. It
There's
really
just
is.
so much everybody wants to say.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah, but in terms of the website, at least in my case, I can't remember. I was looking up something on Twitter, and I read about these parlor videos, and I was like, "Where are these bloody parlor videos?" And then I did a few Google searches or whatnot, and I came across them, and I thought, "Okay, you know what? I should make these more readily available." And threw them up on a website, just a table with thumbnails of each video and a bit of information about each video, and hundreds of thousands of people visited that site. And then
sorry
a few days later,
let me stop you there. Why did you feel like it was important to post those videos? Why did you feel like that was like there was obviously some thought process that made you decide that was the right thing to do, I would say?
I should probably have kept a diary, but I imagine, I felt it was important evidence from a historic event, mostly just about securing evidence and documenting the event. Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
But what happened 2 days later was that a website called ProPublica, they put up all the videos very neatly organized with timestamps and approximate location. And I was like, okay, that's way better than what I created. And then I think I took a break, like a few days, a week or something like that.
Right.
Until I decided that, hey, there's way more to be done here. And then, just kept getting ideas for what could be done, and got in contact with some people that were way better at front-end development than I am. If you ever see anything ugly on the website, I created it, and anything good looking, it was made by someone else.
So you're the guy that creates the things that work really well but don't look that great?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Got
And,
it.
So-
and they don't really work that well either.
Oh,
So let
Okay.
me just ask you, as far as the website is concerned, was this within the intent to expose individuals that were there at the Capitol on January 6th?
No, on a personal level,
Right.
no.
Okay. Because some people might look at it that way. So I just wanted to clear that
Yeah.
air right offhand.
No, because I did an interview with a journalist early on in January, and I didn't know the definition of doxing back then. And he asked me, "So you're doxing people?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so, but no, because it's just photos, videos of people from a public location,
Right.
uploaded to public websites. So no, it's not doxing."
So when you were kind of designing this website and you were moving forward with it and became more popular, Daniel decided to reach out, and he wanted to talk to somebody and kind of give an idea of saying, hey, let's have a conversation about this. And everybody told him no. But you decided to reach out and speak with us about it. What changed your mind that was so different than everybody else that was involved?
Initially, we watched the show, and I think you were making a bit fun of us, and I was like, "Oh Jesus, I don't want to be part of this."
Was
You
I
know,
on
they're
that
just
show? Okay.
Yeah,
And they're just gonna bring us on and make fun of it all.
well,
But then,
sorry, to be fair, we made that episode after I was declined.
Well, yeah.
all right, all right. I don't know who you talk to. But I've always felt it was important to reach out and have a conversation with the other side.
Right.
And also, I'm really curious. You know, I want to understand, like yourselves, how did people come to a conclusion that the best solution was to do a violent insurrection instead of going due course in the courts, right? I don't think I'll ever understand it, but
Yeah. What was interesting is you said you wanted to try to understand the other side, but you kept also saying that I know I'm not going to convince you otherwise. And the goal for me personally, the goal wasn't to try to change your mind or anything like that. It really was just to here's the perspective you wanted to hear. This is what we're feeling. This is what we're
Right.
thinking. This is why we might be thinking
Yeah.
this. And when I say we, I'm talking about anybody that might be on the Republican side in this case. I don't consider myself a Republican, but beyond that, I'm just, I do tend to have a lot of friends in those circles that have told me and shared these stories with me. And there was a lady there actually that was part of our group, and as we were leaving that day, she was just in tears. Like, she was really upset. Like, she feels like her country was falling apart before her eyes. Like, she was concerned about the future for her children, and she was like really, really, like, honestly upset by everything that was going on. Now, I don't, obviously we don't know what's real and what's not when it comes to government. As well as anybody knows, the government will be the first ones to look you right in the face and lie to you, and it would be kind of silly to suggest otherwise, really. But it's like you can kind of get a sense of these people have good hearts. They want their country to succeed. They want good things. They want a future for their children, and I think that's something that both sides all have in common.
Yeah, they want the police and racism and all this other stuff to go away. We want people to stop calling us names and thinking that we're bigots and racist and and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of similarities between the left and the right, but the problem is we don't know how to travel down the same road here. You got one off over in one ditch and one off in the other ditch. Well, how can we both get back on the same road and move forward? That's the key here. It's the understanding where the other side comes from. But you have to be willing to take what information you learn from this show tonight and process it, think about it, and understand the conclusions in which some of us have reached that are different than your conclusions. I'm not asking you to do it. That's something that you'll have to come to terms with on your own. But that's the difficult part is it's hard for people to take something in that they're not used to seeing or hearing or understanding. I did that for so many years as a Democrat. I was very much in that mindset. Like, I did not want to hear the opposition side. I didn't want to understand where they were coming from. But then slowly over time, in my private time with no show, with nobody around, I started to doing research. Like, what really started with me was understanding my core values. If anybody wants to know where they kind of align themselves with certain individuals, groups, parties, whatever, understand what's in your heart, understand what you believe in, understand what you think is right and what you think is wrong. And that's kind of what paved the way for me to realize, hey, I'm more conservative than I am Democrat, and that's okay. But I also still have a little bit of Democrat, values as well. Hey, and it does happen. You can have both. But
Wait, what? Are you serious?
yeah, it is a thing. So for me, it's not something that happens overnight. But I think that this is where our society is kind of stuck. We're not willing to take a deep breath, sit back, process the information we're given, and then think about it and give ourselves some time to process it, and then come back to the table later and say, you know what, I didn't agree and I still don't agree, but after doing some time of researching and understanding and hearing more stories and more people, I get it. Okay, well, once you get it, then you try to find ways to, okay, now let's move forward with that. How can we prevent what happened at the Capitol, moving forward? What can we do? It all starts with the people we elect into office. This isn't about Trump. This isn't about Biden. This isn't about Obama. This is about looking at the people we elect into office. We have to make that judgmental thought of, is this somebody that is going to represent me in the place that I live? But it also starts at the local level. A lot of people want to tackle the issue at the very, very tip top, which is the presidency. No, that's wrong. You have to start at the local level. That's where it starts. Then you can work your way up, and then you can start making more of a difference going that route. So with that being said, I just hope that by the end of this conversation, whatever it is that you choose to do with this conversation, that, we hope that you've learned a little something from us, and, I hope I've learned a little bit of something from you. We can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, I'd still go out and have a beer with you and, hang out with you for a little bit. But it's, but again,
I agree.
These conversations just don't stop. It doesn't stop here. We don't just have one conversation. We want to have you back on the show. We want to keep talking about this, because that is the value of the road that we must travel. Roads aren't built by themselves. You build them together. That's the only way that you can really maintain progress throughout life. Really, it is.
I really want to learn from it myself, and I think I have two key questions.
Yeah.
One being, what will convince you that the election was not stolen, because the court process was not sufficient, obviously? And do you think the violence was justified? I think those are the two main questions I have myself, something I want to understand.
Yeah, as far as I'll address the violence one here, and it's for me, it's about how our politicians and our media cover the violence, because the violence is happening on both sides, whether we like it or whether we like it or not. I mean, you'll have the left say it's more on the right, and you'll have the right say it's more on the left. But I don't really know. I mean, I'm one of 300+ million people. I don't think that violence is ever justified. What I would like to see happen is there be a more fair and balanced coverage of the violence that's going on, and have it treated equally, which we really don't see that happen.
I condone violence, whether it's one side or the other side, one city or another one. But
I had a feeling. I think we all do. I think we all.
The two of you think that the violence was justified on the 6th.
No, I don't find the violence to be justified at any of these. Matter of fact, one of my core principles is, that the initiation of violence is immoral. Now, I am all about self-defense. I think self-defense is perfectly moral, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that found that to be a weird view. But as far as the initiation of violence, no, I'll never support that. I don't operate that way in my personal life, and I would never expect society to operate that way either. I would love
in that sense, we're not on different sides.
Oh, absolutely. And I have a sense, honestly, that I think most people agree on more things than
they realize.
I think I don't think I'd be crazy saying that you and I both would love a better future for our children, that you and I would both love to see the violence stop, that you and I would love to see communication grow stronger, that we would love to be able to actually move forward in a positive manner. I mean, these are just kind of like real basic shit, but it's a point of commonality that I think everybody just kind of disagrees on how we actually achieve those goals. Is that fair to say?
There.
You feel like it's fair to say so far?
Yeah. In terms of, both of us condoning violence, it sort of brings us back to the website, because one of the purposes of the website is to bring people to justice for their violence, for their destruction.
Now, I'll tell you what, I would completely believe you. I'm not calling you a liar. Don't understand what I'm saying. I would 100% believe you that is your goal, that you want people who are causing violence to be brought to justice, if you were to be willing to also take up the reins of basically taking the footage from Portland and doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Creating a website.
Yeah,
Here's the video
yeah.
footage. Here's a bunch of guys. Guys, let's do. Look, we did it for January 6th. We don't condone violence. These guys are being violent,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
let's bring them to justice.
What's
would
going
be,
on in Portland
like-
right now is bad.
Like, bro,
it's bad.
If you did that,
Yeah.
I'd have mad respect. I'd be like, dude, this dude is about what he's
Yeah.
talking. Like, he's about it. You know, he's not just talking
Yeah.
about it. He's being about it. And I would have
Yeah.
mad respect for you if you did that.
I'm not an expert on Portland.
Well, obviously, it was just an example.
The way January 6th was maybe unique was that Parler was sort of taking off. It was getting really popular.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's lots of video evidence from there. It's so in terms of evidence collection, just a lot easier.
I mean, nothing worth doing's, anything worth doing is going to be difficult to do, I would imagine. But
Well,
it was
with
just an example how you could actually take the principles that you espouse and apply them equally. There's a number of different situations like this that are going on that people are not being brought to justice because, well, quite frankly, we don't have a big organized group of people documenting them.
And to be clear about something about Antifa, these are individuals that are terrorizing neighborhoods. These are individuals that are terrorizing a complete city. Okay, and I understand what you're saying about January 6th, but we're also talking about one isolated incident versus what's been going on in Portland for the last 3 years.
Yeah, the
That's a
difference here
huge
being
difference.
that you had people, including Donald Trump, asking for a wild protest, and it was, it was the Capitol, it was your Congress that was being attacked. It was democracy itself. So in that sense, it's different, right?
Well, do you think if
I condone the violence in Portland, absolutely.
so? Okay, let me ask
If
you
there
this.
is any
So,
violence.
but there's a lot of violence going on in Portland, and I've seen a lot of footage recently. But
the one that, sorry, just real quick, the one that pops to mind is the clip I saw of a bunch of people saying, "Is he white? Is he white? Go get him!" And because people were white, they were attacking them.
There was a gentleman pulled out
Like,
of
what the
a
fuck,
white
man?
pickup truck and was beaten almost to death up in Portland because of this whole situation. And there has been several people that have died in Portland because of what's going on up there. I mean, it's just, the thing is, and something to keep in mind here is that one of the reasons why I keep stressing Portland and the destruction that's going on up there is because other cities, other Antifa cells, they can model this behavior. If they're seeing what's going on up in Portland for the last 3 years, what's not to say they're thinking, well, they've been getting away with it for the last 3 years. Why not do it here? So then you go from one city, now you have another city. This can manifest itself into something really bad if it's not controlled, and nobody has controlled it. So it's
let me help you out
it's
here.
tit for tat as far as what's going on.
Hey,
But
Tom-
if you
Tom-
say the
Tommy-
past three years,
Sorry,
do
Tommy.
you
Before you
feel the-
respond, let me throw something from the comments. I think they pointed out you meant condone or condemn the violence, not condone the violence. Condone means you support.
Yeah,
the
sorry,
violence.
right.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. I know English isn't your first language, so it's
No, it's not
easy.
my native
They're very
language.
similar words, and it drives me nuts. But just make sure.
Apologies.
Yeah, make sure when you say that it's condemned. It's
Right.
okay.
On them.
So what? I'm sorry. I
Thank
did before I interrupted you. What were you trying to say?
I can't remember, but one thing was I don't know how serious the situation is in Portland, but do you feel the mayor is to blame, or the governor, or
The mayor,
or the
Mayor
president, or?
Well, Mayor Ted Wheeler has been very responsible for a lot of what's been going on up there. And then it basically backfired on him because Antifa then turned around and turned themselves onto Ted Wheeler, who has been supporting and an advocate of all the violence that's been currently going on. This is where, the best thing I can tell you to do is to take some time after the show and do a lot of research on Antifa with what's going on up in Portland. and kind of understand the history of what's been going on up there and kind of where it's at. So I think what you're going to discover once you do that is like, wow, this isn't getting any press time, and you've got a complete city that's burning. You know, and a lot, especially if you're from another country, you're not going to hear about this at all. So it's one of the reasons why I'm right. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it to your attention, that it's not just.
I just remembered something else we would agree on. It's that the media fucking sucks.
Well,
I think that's something we could definitely agree on.
I mean, I think everybody can agree on that.
Regardless of where you're getting your news from, they're terrible at it.
Yeah. I just want to make a distinction between Portland and the capital. You know.
Yeah.
I view January 6th as an attack on democracy.
Right.
You know, you had people dying on January 6th.
Wait, who?
And you know, the violence was incited by, this is my opinion, obviously, but Donald Trump, who wanted a wild protest. You had Rudy Giuliani saying, let's have trial by combat. You had Roger Stone and Ali Alexander coming up with stop the steal and so on. I feel sorry for the participants, because I felt they were manipulated with, you know,
right. So okay, if you felt that way for the participants and that they were manipulated, do you feel like it's bringing justice to hold all of the other people that were just there accountable too? Because I mean, not saying that you personally did, but I mean, the website did have the other result of getting a lot of people punished for simply just being there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not the judge. I'm not gonna put anyone in prison.
Right.
I believe just entering the Capitol grounds, I think it's as much as 12 months in prison. You know, we're talking maximum sentence.
That's crazy. Just for entering the building.
I'm not gonna give my opinion about that.
That never did make sense to me. Like, hey, this is a publicly paid for building. This is the Capitol building. Like, we're as the taxpayers, we pay for this.
I'd like to mention one thing though.
Yeah.
The website focuses on people that were violent or destructive or entered the building. You know, the worst perpetrators. But yeah, I believe so much in law and order that I do think everyone should be held accountable. But I obviously, I would much rather see them putting the violent ones in jail, the ones that were responsible for the death of Signic, for example, the people that dragged out, what's his name, Fanone. Those are the worst perpetrators, right? And they'll be spending probably decades in jail, and you know, for what? Because they believed in what I consider to be a lie. It's tragic, really.
Yeah, I could see that from your perspective for sure. That it's just like, okay, these people are getting lied to, and now this causes them to be super violent, and now they're getting punished, and they're going to be ruining their families, and they're going to be in jail for forever, probably. I can totally understand from your perspective why that might appear that way. Again, for me, it's just the fact that these things aren't being equally covered. You know, there's just such a strong. I mean, let's be honest. It is political. The fact that it's still in the news. What, 3-4 months later since this happened?
And then that's why I brought up Portland, because Portland is every weekend.
It benefits the politicians that want it in the news to keep it in the news.
I
mean, do you agree with that statement? That general statement? Do you at least agree with that?
That it's disproportionate, the news.
No. The part that as far as it's politically convenient or helpful, the politicians will prefer it stay in the news.
Absolutely. Some will probably abuse it, you know, have political motives. Absolutely. But you still had people dying that day. It was an attack on democracy, you know. It's been in media worldwide, not just in the U.S.
Right.
and also it was such a unique event because you had Confederate flags in Congress. It was
What's wrong with the
it was the
Confederate
first time
flag?
since I believe 1814 that the Congress was invaded, stormed. It was really a unique event. So I do understand
actually,
if it still
from
gets
what I
media coverage.
sorry for not to correct you, but I do believe that the Capitol has been quote unquote stormed more than just since you said 1814. I think it's been.
I believe
I think it's been.
1814 was
I
the
think
last
people
time.
have actually gone into the Capitol on multiple occasions
Yeah,
since then.
there was
I
a-
can't remember the exact specifics,
There
but I
was
do
a
remember
protest.
hearing something.
I want to say back in the 90s where they had a bunch of Democrats that did a sit-in in the Capitol. Yeah, it was peaceful. It was still a protest.
Yeah, and well,
Nobody
I
died.
mean, on January 6th, it was mostly peaceful too. But
Mostly peaceful. Where have we heard that one before?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. From the comments,
It depends.
from the
what
comments,
your definition of mostly peaceful is, Pat.
right. So from the comments, somebody says Ashley Babbitt was the only death that day, and we saw her blood. And she was actually shot by Capitol Police in that instance, which honestly, I mean, as tragic as it is, if you break into a government building and, the government's only role is to escalate until you comply or die. And unfortunately, she kept escalating and they did too. And she died as a result of it. So I do feel like
She
it was
wasn't-
her
There was
fault
also
for that. But
Brian Sicknick and Roseanne Boyland that died that day. And I believe there were 2 suicides afterwards.
what was interesting is while we were there, we actually did hear rumors that they shot 2 or 3 people. Like that's how the rumor.
It was
like,
one of the
it was-
officers. I think it was one of the
it
DC
was-
cops.
No, there wasn't actually somebody else shot. It was just 2
no,
separate.
no.
What I'm getting at is there was a rumor going around. This is just how unreliable some of this information is. It's like I'm there at the building at the time when it's happening. I'm recording stuff, and I'm just I never went in the building, but I'm sitting there recording, and I'm trying to get a sense of what's going on, and I'm hearing rumors, and people that are right there have no idea whether it's true or not. like so to hear it from the way I keep telling people this is like. You could literally take any story you wanted to tell, and probably with the amount of people that were there, you could tell that story and be 100% true, 100% on point. You could say that, yes, it was a violent insurrection. You could show selective footage, and that would be the story you wanted to paint. And yes, there was some of that going on. You could also tell a story. No, go ahead.
That's why it's so important that we, collect this evidence. For example, I can't remember, but we have more than 10 hours just of parlor videos,
Grab that
right?
comment.
So we know what happened today. We have
60s and
footage
70s.
from outside, from inside. We have security cams. We have body cameras. Videos uploaded to Twitter, to YouTube, to all these platforms.
Right.
And we are collecting that evidence. That's why the website is so important. Not just that website. There are other websites out there that are even better in
So just to double back,
with regard to some aspects.
I want to give a shout out to the Swamp Cleaner. He says the Black Panthers in the 60s or 70s went in with guns and occupied the Capitol. That was in 1960 or 70, something around there.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
it's happened, but
Yeah.
it just so happens that if it doesn't fit the narrative, we don't hear about it. Unfortunately,
All right. Yeah.
it's just here's the problem. There's just so many stories you could tell.
Well,
and
we're so hyper focused
it just
on.
it just depends on where you were standing that day, or who you were around, or what video footage you choose to go along with, and you could tell any story. There were stories that Antifa was dressed up as Trump supporters, going in there and starting stuff, and a matter of fact, whether or not it was like widespread and it was the whole reason, I don't think so, but. Was there a few people there that were Antifa that were trying to start shit? Yeah. There's actual video evidence of that. Was there some people going in the Capitol being violent? Yes, there was. There's video evidence of that. Was there a bunch of people there just kind of like lost and didn't know what was going on? Yeah, there was that too. And no matter what story you want to tell, you can tell it. I mean, that's just the problem. There was that many things going on all at once, and it was chaotic and confusing.
Yeah. I know you said actually on your previous podcast that you didn't see Antifa or BLM. You said you saw 3 individuals from Antifa. I don't know if you changed your mind, but
Yeah, that
I know that
that could have been just in.
Alex Jones from Infowars, immediately after the incident, maybe when they figured out it was not successful,
Oh, good Lord.
actually created videos where you have people saying, "Oh, it was Antifa." I refer to that as the small lie myself.
Oh,
You
good
know, the
Lord.
big
Who
lie
who
being,
who listens to that guy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Who, Alex Jones?
Alex, if you're getting your news
Hey,
from Alex
but I
Jones,
tell you what, though, he's been pretty right about a lot of things. That's the scary part.
you got to take anything he says with a grain of salt.
You
Like,
do,
you
but
really do.
sometimes he does get it right, and it's like, whoa.
Hell, even a broken clock's right twice a day. You know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody watches Alex
No,
Jones
not
for their
for-
mainstream
no.
But
information
but
source.
just to be clear, that predominantly, and we've seen it with the arrested people and so on, they were not Antifa.
Yeah, actually,
They even
specific
blamed,
name,
Jacob
Corey
Chansley of being. Sorry.
Corey Lamley, head of Nashville Antifa, was there.
He was there, yeah.
That's been
All right.
proven as
So,
well.
That's here in our
One in-
Yeah,
hometown.
that's in our neck of the woods. You know, he was there. Now, I don't know what he was doing there. I don't know. But that's.
I don't
just-
think
that's
he
just-
was grocery shopping.
Yeah, that's just it. That's just it. There's so many
probably not.
stories. You got that's if there's one thing I would try to impart to you is that no matter what story you want to tell about what happened on that day,
But I kind of
you could tell it
I kind of get the
and
sense
be
that
and you would be
we're-
100% correct in telling it. You know.
No, I kind of get
Yeah.
the sense that we're having a discussion of who did what, and rather than and again, like I said before, yes, this was a very unique and very unique situation that did happen at the Capitol, but I think really what needs to be understood here is that we have such a bigger problem than just what happened at the Capitol. Yes, it was a very unfortunate thing. Yes, people, a person died. I've been hearing things and reading things that other people had died from complications for other medical reasons, but that's here nor there. But I think what's important for people that are looking at this country from the outside looking in is that this isn't a perfect society. We have shootings going on in Chicago where the black community is constantly killing more black people than we have ever seen in decades. We've got an issue up there that doesn't seem to be, nobody seems to be taking care of it.
It's not brought up unless it's
And-
politically expedient.
Right. And then, we have right now we're kind of going through this thing where you're seeing a lot of black people that are attacking Asian Americans. That's not getting any press, or it did at one time, but then kind of fizzled out. And then you have the whole situation going on up in Portland. And then you have the whole situation going on down at the southern border, who we know somebody who lives 11 miles from the border that is telling us, look, this is a legit crisis. And she's, Hispanic. She's from Mexico, and she's watching all this. And she's got a lot of friends with the Border Patrol Agency. And so what I would like to encourage those that are looking at our country from the outside looking in is look at the country abroad. Don't look at the country and don't be so hyper focused on what the media is telling you. Actually kind of pull up, okay, well, what's going on in the U.S.? What's going on in Portland? And, what's going on in different areas of the U.S. that I'm not aware of? Educate yourself. Learn about the statistics of the black on black violence that's currently going on in Chicago, and and the whole situation with BLM, and that one of the founding members was banking money from black people to buy $1 million homes. Like one of the co-founders of BLM is doing this.
And
it's
if you mentioned that on Facebook, it was shut down.
Right. So I mean, there's just so many things that are going on. And I know part of the reasons why we're having you on is to address the Capitol situation as far as your website is concerned. But I'm just trying to help you in a sense of kind of better educate yourself on what's currently going on, socially with the United States. That's all I'm trying to do. But to say that January 6th was, it just blows my mind. We're still talking about it. Here we are almost in June. And just last weekend, Portland, is dealing with the police station that was caught on fire. And I'm like, okay, well, this has been going on for a while. Let's kind of divert our attention over to things that are actually a real issue. Not to say that the Capitol isn't, because, that's come and gone now. And hopefully what I'd like to see is that we all learned a little something from January 6th, whatever that might look like. But okay, we've learned something. Let's talk about it. Let's understand where people are coming from. But then let's also have that conversation about what's really going on in the world. Things that are consistent, things that are really kind of affecting our society. That's what I'm more focused in on. So,
Yeah, is there anything particular you wanted to hit on? I know we've been covering a lot, so
yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And listen,
How much time do we have left?
Honestly, as much as you want.
Yeah.
Really, we're just enjoying the conversation. I'm enjoying the conversation.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know how you feel. How is it for you right now? Anyway, just curious.
I'm a bit fired up because I feel there's some unanswered questions, but I just like to point out that in terms of the website,
Yeah.
we're not really spinning a narrative, like maybe a news station would, because we've uploaded all the videos from Parler, irrespective of whether they show a police officer being sprayed or beaten with an item or people singing,
Right.
Yeah, no,
we're
I never
not spinning a narrative.
I
We're
never got
collecting
the
all of the evidence.
Yeah, I never got the impression that you guys were spinning some kind of narrative. I never got that impression.
I haven't seen it, so I couldn't give you a thought to to kind of tell you on that. So
I've watched between 30 and 40,000 Parler videos myself, so I've
Oh my
I've seen
God.
it.
well, then you are probably more educated than I am at this
Wow,
point.
That's crazy. I can't even imagine like what must be like to have that much time to watch through those videos. Like this had to have been really important for you, is what I'm getting at. To feel like that amount of time was justified. Yeah. And I guess
Absolutely,
what is it? What is it? I got a sense, and let me correct me if I'm wrong here, but what it feels like, what I think you said earlier, was that you really don't want to see the United States basically go through the same thing that your country had gone through, or local countries
Or
around
something
you.
No,
similar.
Something
not
similar.
my country.
Yeah, not.
I was
Yeah,
thinking of
I misspoke.
Hungary and Poland,
Right. You
where
didn't want to see.
democracy has deteriorated. It has deteriorated as well. If you look at reports from Freedom House, it has deteriorated as well in the U.S., but obviously not as much as Hungary and Poland yet. But
Right.
I think
Yeah.
January 6th was a warning.
I think we're going to see a lot in the upcoming next few years, as far as countries just completely changing their makeup. I don't even know what to expect. It's been crazy the last couple of years to be sure, but
What's interesting though is I really don't dabble into other foreign affairs. Like I don't really pay attention to what goes on in other countries. Now, only here recently the whole situation with Israel, but
I barely pay attention to what's going on in this country.
right. Well, so let me ask you just you might get this criticism a lot, but with somebody who is in a different country, do you get a lot of pushback from people in the U.S. that say, "Hey, look, this is none of your business. You're from another country"? Do you get that a lot?
Because
I see it a lot.
You're the
on
only
internet.
guys I've interacted with.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe I would get that. I don't know. Maybe.
I didn't know. I see that a lot on comment threads, like on social media. You see a lot of people talking, well, why do you have a voice in this when you don't even live here? So I actually kind of like the fact that I'm hearing somebody from an outside source. Obviously you're not getting a lot of the same information I am as far as local and, and other news, but to also understand the countries in which have come from I want to say probably a not as popular background as other countries that have been liberated, for instance, and wanting to understand what is the fascination with their involvement with U.S. politics. Like I've never quite understood that. Like what's the driving force behind that?
Yeah. So I think I said it at the very beginning. The thing is that for years the U.S. was considered the leader of the free world, right? Maybe you could argue it's the European Union now, but um, it's still the largest democracy in the world, right?
No,
And
no,
to
it's
see
it's
that
a
deteriorate.
it's a democratic republic.
Yeah,
But yeah, it is the largest democratic republic in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, India is bigger, right? But in terms of the size of the
No,
economy,
they're a
at least.
democracy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Versus a democratic republic.
yeah,
Yeah, we're not a democracy.
No.
We never have been.
We're a
democratic
republic.
All right.
That was some long silence. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I did a terrible job as a host. Oh, let the silence steep. Okay. Anyway, constitutional republic. Sorry
is
about
what-
that.
yeah.
Thank you. Look, as far as politics go, like I could care less a lot of times. I'm an anarchist. I don't believe we should have a state anyway. The government is immoral, in my opinion. That's another conversation we can have later. But it's just, it's really hard for me to focus on other countries, or let alone my own country, when I'm in the middle of raising a family and I'm in the middle of trying to make ends meet myself. I've got some ideas why it's difficult to make ends meet. Everybody does. It's just, I think the vast majority of people that you're going to encounter are getting a very, very limited view of what's actually going on in the world. Like their world knowledge, or even their own country's knowledge, is very limited, and probably limited to an hour worth of cable news network television at the end of the night. It's so I mean, to hold everybody like to the same standard, it just seems kind of strange to me. Like I'm not really sure where I'm going with that, but I think it had more to do with trying to put on everybody else's shoulder who was there involved at January 6th, trying to accuse them of kind of the same thing as the few that actually did break into the building and cause damage or bodily harm or whatever the case was. It's just it's something that I just want to make sure folks are really careful not to do, and that includes if you're talking to a lefty or a
that throws you in the equation because you were there,
or a libtard. Well, I mean, because I try to talk to people. What's the old thing? You treat people the best you can when you first meet them, and then you treat them as they treat you from that point forward. And so far, Tommy, you've treated me just fine. We've had conversation on the phone. We've talked over text and whatnot. I would consider you as somebody that I can respect and I can talk to. Whether we disagree or not. And I just want to. I would never lump you into all of those nasty bastards on the left who are burning down cities. And a lot of people on the right do that. They consider anybody who's on the left is somehow a monster, and people on the left tend to consider everybody on the right some kind of monster, and it's a really dangerous kind of thinking, this dichotomy.
Yeah, it's not good.
And I hope,
Yeah,
honestly, I hope
because,
these conversations we have.
What you're saying, actually, it's important because
Oh, I've lost you.
Can you hear me?
You've gotten really quiet all of a sudden for some reason. I can still hear you. You're just quiet.
Okay, I'll just talk louder.
Okay, there you go.
It's really unfortunate because when you have division, you have fear, you have anger, and those are emotions that are really they're easy to exploit, by people that want to manipulate you and say social media, right? So that's why this conversation we're having now is so important as part of everything that's going on.
Well, I hope that you keep in contact with us and we have more conversations in the future. We would love to have you back on the show to discuss other things or anything in particular that you want to discuss. We would love to have you back on as a frequent guest and just kind of pick your brain on different things and kind of learn a little bit about each other. That's always a good thing to do. You got to start somewhere. So
I think the big question, and I'll just leave it hanging there,
Yeah.
that would be, what would convince you, what would have to happen for you to know that the election was not stolen? You don't have to answer now, but that's key question for me.
I think everybody has their own perception of what they would consider stolen. Um, as for myself, I do feel as if it was stolen from the American people, and what that looks like, whether it was votes, moral, from a moral sense, from a political sense, from a vote sense. I think there were so many different things that were tied in. So when I say that the election was stolen, to me, it was more than just a vote count. It was legit. Our country was just taken from us. I mean, when you look at everything that we've gone through, and you look at, this had nothing to do with Trump. It's everything that's led up before Trump, and then we got Trump, and then now we're into. It's like we went from Trump. Now we went to Biden, of all fucking people. I mean, Jesus Christ. I would have taken Bernie Sanders over Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's far reaching for me.
Yeah.
I would have taken AOC over
that makes
over
him smile. That makes him sing. Because you told me you were a Bernie fan before, didn't you?
Yeah, well, mostly.
Oh, that's right, he did. I forgot about that. But
yeah.
It's like how is a man who racked in more votes than the first African American president ever, that you cannot convince me that he won by such a margin that he is the most popular president of all time. You can't convince. It's like
maybe Trump was the most
hated
unpopular president of all time.
Yeah, I would imagine if the vote was legit, that the reason why he had so many votes is because Trump was so hated.
Right.
It can't be because Biden's popular. There's no freaking way. But one thing I do want to point out is when you mentioned it wasn't just the vote, it was other things too. And the thing that popped into my mind is that the media was constantly suppressing the Hunter Biden story before the election. The one about the Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah.
It was constantly being suppressed. I've seen the videos. They're disgusting. They're fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
That story was suppressed by the media. Now, right after the election, it started leaking out. The like Facebook, YouTube, and stuff started kind of allowing it to be talked about, if you will. And there was a great number of people who, after seeing that, said, I would have never voted for Joe Biden if I would have known this. So I guess there was, what I'm getting at is there was a lot of media manipulation that took advantage of people, like what you were saying, and just manipulating people into either not hearing about something completely or telling them complete falsities about, what their side wanted to hear.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is when you ask me my personal opinion on what it looks like as far as this election was stolen, to me it was a multiple of things that were stolen, not just the general election, in my opinion.
Right.
Because coming from an actual U.S. citizen, there was a lot more at stake than just the presidency itself, and that's something I want to be very clear on. So, but it also depends on who you ask. My answer to your question is going to be far different than Daniel's or anybody else that we've had on the show or that I'm just giving you my personal opinion that I just felt like that, there was a lot more stolen from us than just the general election. So hopefully that answers your question as far as what you were wanting to know. Did we lose his audio?
No, I think you're still there.
No.
Okay.
I just,
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah. It's just a number of things that all kind of mounted up into where we're at now.
So just keep in mind when you ask that question to people, you're always going to get a different response. And it may not be the response that you're looking for, but I'm just giving you mine. How you choose to view that is completely up to you, my man.
So I'm curious, from your perspective, do you feel like taking a vote recount is the right thing to do if there's this many people who question or don't believe the results of the election?
No, that's not. No, because it's not really usually how you do elections, right? You have the election, you count the votes.
Yeah, you're gonna have to speak up a little bit louder, okay?
Right. No. So in terms of margins, you had. I mentioned previously. I think it was 12,000 and 10,000 vote difference in Georgia and Arizona, and even that wouldn't be enough to to win the presidency. And if you recount the votes, you're only gonna have tops a few hundred votes swinging back and forth. So it's not gonna make a difference. What I don't know. I think that the question is, what would you have done differently about the election?
You're listening to Unfriend.
This,
Sorry.
no worries. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's what puzzles me.
Oh, okay. Well, I get what you're saying in terms of, recounting the vote may not change the election results, but what I'm what I'm looking for is giving peace of mind to roughly half the country that doesn't believe it. And I guess what I would say is, there's a reason you have like paper ballots. Is for just such a situation, so that you can go back and audit and double check and make sure that it was correct. That's why we have
But
them.
they did
Right.
already do a recount.
Now, I think there's a number of places that
Yeah,
are doing recounts now.
Yeah. I believe Copa County over in Arizona is in the process of doing one now, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and look.
But and that's also, that brings us back. If you have evidence of voter fraud, bring it to the courts. If you don't trust the count, do a recount. They did do that.
Yeah. Now I don't
do a violent insurrection.
I don't know if this is true, or I don't know if this number is true or not. I'm just reading from comments, so just don't hold me to it. But I'm seeing 66K underage people voted just in Georgia. No, I don't. Again, I just.
Where's that evidence?
Well, I don't.
We don't. That's just
what came through the comments. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that's just these are the kind of things that whether they're true or not, that's what people are being told. That's what they believe. So either we have a vote problem, or we have a dishonest media problem. Something's got to give that's going to give people peace of mind.
Yeah, I think where did this person pick up the number? Was it 60,000 or 66,000? Where did they get this number from? Who's feeding that disinformation? I think that's an important conversation to have.
Sound issues.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, we're having sound issues.
Yeah, I just can't hear you on your side for some reason. Can you?
All right. I'll try
try
to
unplugging
talk louder.
Yeah, just try unplugging your headphones. See if that makes any difference.
Yeah. I just tried doing that.
Could be.
Think your battery's dying?
No, I'm just saying that the person that mentioned 60,000 votes. Where did they get that number from?
That sounds better, Daniel.
I think it's important to have a conversation about.
Turn it up just a little bit.
About disinformation.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Whoa, that's too loud. Hang on just a second. Hang on.
That was too much.
I do apologize.
Turn it down. Okay, keep talking.
No, it's
Yeah, turn it down, Daniel. Turn it down.
someone mentioned
Turn it down.
60,000
little bit more.
extra votes. Was
Okay,
my
that's good.
understanding. Where did they get this number from? People need to be more critical of their sources, or they're being used like, I don't want to, like sheep. Like it's terrible.
Sorry about that. We got the sound working good now.
Yeah,
Sometimes
all
this
of a
happens.
sudden it just kind of
This
like.
is why I need a producer. I'm hiring.
Well,
you
I
wanna-
don't think that had anything to do on our end because we sound fine. I think it was something on his end.
Maybe your
'cause he did-
battery.
Yeah, I think his battery might have went dead.
Oh, it's okay.
I-
We got it.
I can
Yeah,
hear
it's
you.
fine.
Maybe it's at my end.
Yeah, we
I'm
got
sorry
it. No,
about
yeah,
that.
that's okay. It happens. No big deal. Yeah, we got it. So
But,
yeah, I'm just trying to kind of read through the comments, see if there's anything I want to grab here. Someone says they'll send it to you, but this guy is saying it'll be disinformation. I have seen that a lot. This cognitive dissonance that happens a lot with both all sides.
Well, it's all sides.
Yeah, all sides of the stuff. Where even when you're presented with information that goes against what you're saying, it just causes people to double down, or just say it's lies or whatever. And I don't know how you I don't know. Maybe you have a solution for that. I don't know how you get around that.
You know, that was one of the things that I did is I had to, back when I was a Democrat, I had to read things that made me feel uncomfortable because it did not feed into my echo chamber. Like I literally had to read articles or watch videos from Fox because that was never my source of media. Large part of that was MSNBC and then of course CNN. So moving over to Fox, it was just like, oh my God, are you serious right now? But it's just like, I'm kind of glad I did it because it really had to make me stop and think and understand where people's thought processes are coming from. It's far different than mine. So
What about you, Tommy? What do you think?
I honestly think that the individual that wrote about the 60,000, I you know, even if I had been watching Fox, OAN, whatever, I haven't seen that number mentioned. I think people are being misinformed, and I think they need to be critical of their sources. You know, go to the primary source.
Absolutely.
Don't just trust numbers that you read on the internet.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Definitely need to check numbers. I would be interested to see where that number comes from too, because that's first I'd heard it. So,
right.
but is there anything like you'd want to ask us?
Yeah.
Is this about us in general? I mean, you know, I feel like we've been
Nothing that jumped to
yeah.
mind right now.
I feel like we've been getting to know you so well this episode. So,
We'll have to do a sequel.
yeah, would you
Yeah.
be down? Would you be down for that to come back sometime in the future?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, sure.
I was like, yeah, maybe not. That's kind of what I got. Come on, Tommy.
Well, regardless, so you know, again, the whole conversation has been fun. I've enjoyed myself. I feel like I don't feel like we've gotten, you know, too terribly off track or too angry or nothing like that. And you know, it was just fun just to kind of basically bat some stuff back and forth and see what lands, you know. And I feel like there's a few lessons that can be learned throughout it. I'm not sure what they are just yet, but I'm sure as we watch it back and review it, we'll figure out what that is. But listen, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
You want to tell people where they can reach you if they want to come?
On Jan 6 Attack on Twitter.
Okay.
On Jan 6 Attack on Twitter. Yep. That'll be a good one. And yeah, definitely check that out at Jan 6 Attack, and that's the number 6 Attack for that as well. Yeah, some
Well, man,
a
we
hell of a
appreciate you
Twitter feed.
coming on tonight and chit-chatting with us. And hopefully all three of us and whoever's been watching can learn a little something about this conversation we've had and can walk away a little bit healthier, you know, mindset of, you know, where individuals are arriving to this place that they're currently in. But I do look forward to having you back on if you're willing to do so and furthering our discussions and conversations, political or non-political. If you want to talk about other things, we can do that. So
kind of prefer it not be political. Honestly.
I you know what, I would prefer it if it wasn't political, but
Sure.
it will be political because of the current environment.
Hey, we have control over the conversation, and
Yeah.
Anthony and I we decided probably 6 months ago. We're like, yes, everything we talk about does tend to go back to politics, unfortunately. So
we're trying to be better about
We've
doing
made
so.
a real concerted effort to focus more back on just plain social issues, relationships, bold ideas, and LOLs. That's what we're about. Politics sometimes gets in that, but for the most part, that's what we want to talk about. And if we want to talk about it, by God, Tommy, we'll talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about.
That's right.
And you can talk about non-political shit too with us. That'd be just fine with me. All right, homie. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having
Okay.
for
Take
coming
care,
on.
guys.
All right.
All right.
And y'all have a good night. Y'all have been watching the Unframe of Mind show where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom.
How'd you think that one
I
went?
am really glad Tommy came and did that
Yeah.
with us. That was a lot of fun. Tommy,
good
if
guy.
you want to stick around for a minute to chat, we'll be right back with you. I just got to close out the show real quick, all right? Okay. So anyway, yeah, I was really glad that he came on and decided to do that. It was a lot. I always enjoy those conversations because it's fun to try to kind of figure out, you know, not so much what we disagree on, but where are the commonalities? What is it that we can agree on, because that's where you start actually building some kind of a solution from. I think is just finding those commonalities and building out from that. What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, in order to build a building of any sort, you got to lay a foundation.
Yeah.
So when you lay that foundation of communication, you know, moving forward, hopefully you can build something to where, yes, we don't agree on certain things, but you know what? We don't have to yell at each other. We don't have to scream and to get our points across.
Call each other a bunch of nasty names over the internet.
Yeah, there's no reasons for this.
No.
You know, and that's where a lot of people in today's society can't seem to keep their emotions in check.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So it's I know sometimes I'm guilty of it. You know, there's been times on the show where I've kind of let people have it, but in an overall general sense, as I've done the show over the years, it's like this is what's changed me is conversations that we've had with Tommy and other individuals.
Right.
And that's one of the things I thrive off of because it's changed me in such a way to where I kind of like the person I've become.
Right.
Because of people like Tommy and others.
It's just hard to have any kind of growth if all you're doing is talking to the same people that agree with you all the time.
You can't
the echo
do
chamber,
that.
like
You
that's a dangerous way to get yourself stuck in a spot where you're completely clueless when some other shit happens and you don't have any idea why.
Well, I mean, it's just some people will never get out from that echo chamber, but we do hope that people will.
All right. Well, you all let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah.
And, you know, tell us, did you feel like this was a constructive conversation? We'd love to hear from you guys. And until next week, we're going to do one more live show before we go on summer break.
Taking a break for the summer.
All right. Y'all have a good night.
All right. See